Hello, everybody. Welcome to Medical Myths, the show about what not to do with your body. And we're still on the road, so my audio and my video are not what they usually are, but I hope that everything is at least decent enough for today. Real quick, a couple of announcements before we get into the absolute chaos of this episode. Um, there's been some fun stuff going on in the Discord recently. I updated a bunch of the chat channels and some of the fun stuff. So if you want to go have fun in the Discord, you absolutely should. Also, the Patreon after show now has links in the Discord as well. So for the patrons, you can access the after show from the Discord. And then along with that, a really awesome announcement is that we are now monetized on this channel. So if you want to put in a super chats are now live, and I will read them throughout the episode. And I'm sure that if any of you have questions, you can also, if you don't want to use a super chat for that, you can just put a regular question in the chat, tag me, and I will try to get to those either during the episode or at the end. So feel free to ask questions throughout. But today's topic is kind of funny because I'm going to be flying solo just talking about Facebook cancer cures, because if there's one place that you go for medical advice, obviously, if I have a medical complaint, I'm not going to go to the hospital. I'm not going to go to my PCP. I'm going to go straight to Facebook. And because Facebook knows everything, you can find a group for just about anything. And of course, I want to talk today about cancer cures from Facebook. And there's a lot of weird ones that I've found. So I basically went to Facebook. I found some groups that advertise cancer cures. And this one, we won't spend too much time on this specific group because it really just ended up being a lot of weird, I don't know, new age woo, not really a whole lot of cancer talk on this channel. But this person really stood out to me, talking about, like, this could be a whole separate video in itself. This person starts talking about soul vibrations and how the Vatican is the highest dimension of darkness and humans have 6-dimensional souls, and goes on this whole rant about the 4 steps to become eternal. So this group wasn't as, productive as I was expecting it to be, but I did find some funny things here. So if this one's a public group that has like 20,000 members in it. But after looking at that group, I stumbled upon some other people that have very bad ideas, and I'm going to spend more time talking about one in particular. But also, there were some really weird stuff I want to touch on before we get to the more serious stuff. So, you all were probably brought here by the mention of Emu Oil, and this is actually a supposed cancer cure that people have been trying to use. So there's an article. This is from the FDA, and I don't know how long ago this was published. This was in 2018, so this was a while ago. But some people in these groups have decided that pure emu oil is a cure for cancer. And this was not submitted to the FDA, so it has not been approved as a therapy. But you find these sites that will say that emu oil, which coming from actual emus in Australia, you can buy this online, supposedly, is extremely beneficial in the treatment of rheumatism, arthritis, infections, prostate problems, ulcers, cancer, heart trouble, hardening of the arteries, diabetes, and more, completely eliminating the gangrene, antibiotic pain relievers. So we have a lot of claims being made about this emu oil. And of course, the FDA does a good job addressing this as anything that's going to promote treating all of these conditions or being a miracle cure or something that will treat a very serious and complex disease is probably not legitimate. And they have these personal testimonials, nothing more than hearsay, saying that their husband has Alzheimer's disease, and this is in 1998 began eating 1 teaspoonful of pure emu oil each day, and then it suddenly made him better. So that's already really sketchy. There's no evidence that emu oil does any of this. The best thing that I could find as a use for emu oil is for skin softening. I've seen some people have decided to use emu oil to, uh, for cosmetic reasons, and sure, that's probably fine. I don't know why you'd need to go to emu oil, as opposed to, you could even use a coconut oil if you really wanted to, or a lotion or something like that. I don't know why you'd need to spend this money to import emu oil from Australia, but people are doing this. Um, we have a super chat. Well, I'll read out a couple of them because we had one before the show. Critical Cupcake says, congratulations, and thank you, Critical Cupcake. It means a lot to have you in the chat. And then Mark says, have a beer, Ben. Call it road medicine. I appreciate you, Mark. Thank you for stopping by. A question from the chat we had, what does emu oil taste like? Quail or turkey? I have absolutely no idea. But if you really wanted to do a reaction video to tasting emu oil, I'm sure that you could. So this was one of the more weird cancer therapies, and it completely debunked. Don't use this. It's just hearsay. Probably not going to help with anything. So the next one that I found was, and this one I'll spend only a short amount of time on this one because there's not a whole lot to say about it. But I went to another group, because there are multitudes of these Facebook groups that say that they can treat cancer. So this one is the next group that I went to, and I came across this video. So this group is called Natural Cancer Cures, and I don't know how many people it has in it, but you have all this random content about, things you should eat. And then I came across this video for beam ray cancer treatment. I went to their YouTube page. They have 3 videos up, and the video is very underwhelming. It's just a video of the ray itself. It's like this blue, like, beam me up, Scotty ray that supposedly, all caps, cancer cure and treatment, cancer and virus-like microorganisms, beam ray and sound treatment. So this was really sketchy. So I went to their website, and I'll read for you what they say about this beam ray. And this is from a thermography website, which thermography has been advertised to be an alternative to mammography. There is limited evidence that thermography does anything beneficial at all. So, of course, they already are selling a dubious product. And so here's their beam ray. The beam ray is a light and sound generator developed from the technology of Royal Raymond Rife. Rife invented a powerful light microscope that had a magnification of 60,000 times. With this invention, he and other scientists were able to see microbes and viruses that were previously unknown. The beam ray light and sound generator was programmed to produce a frequency that would kill harmful microorganisms in the same way that a singer shatters a glass with a focused tone. Rife was able to determine with his microscope the frequency that would demolish the organism. He could then program the beam ray to that specific frequency and destroy the organism. I just love the way that beam ray sounds. It just sounds so ridiculous already. So he did a supposed study on 16 out of 16 cancer patients were completely cured by Rife's beam ray in 4 months. And he discovered this virus in 1938, supposedly. And I have questions right off the bat about this. Number one, what is this ray? He does not describe what this ray does, what the frequency is. Because when you look up details about chemotherapy, radiation therapy, you're gonna get, if it's legitimate information, they're gonna tell you about what these rays are, what the mechanism is, how they work. He doesn't explain at all what type of cancer these people have. If these people had a very mild cancer that's not going to be likely to spread, or one that's easily treatable, you don't know if this cancer, number one, would have regressed on its own. You don't know what other therapies they had in addition to this. So if they were receiving surgery or chemotherapy or other medications and also had this beam ray, they're not disclosing what other treatments they underwent. So sure, 16 out of 16 of these people could have had regression uh, of their cancer, but we just don't know the details of this case. And in terms of viruses that can cause cancer, we know that there are viruses that increase risk for cancer, namely HPV. We know is a cause of pharyngeal. I cannot speak today. Pharyngeal and cervical cancers. So we know this. But he doesn't specify. There's HPV, HTLV, some others can also predispose you to cancer. But we don't know if this virus is what he says is the cause of the cancer. Number one, we'd have data that tells us that this virus causes the cancer, but also we'd probably be given a name. He'd probably tell us what this virus is. He'd tell us the details. Is this a DNA virus, an RNA virus? Is it positive sense, negative sense RNA? We'd have a lot more information that would justify us considering it to be a cancer risk factor. And we don't see any of that here. So he's clearly, with this article, he is not marketing to doctors. He is not marketing to healthcare providers because the information needed for me to prescribe this type of therapy is not here. This is for the lay public, and I'm willing to bet that he does not that this treatment is not accepted by insurance. It's not accepted by really any legitimate medical facilities. So my guess is his audience and the people that he's getting with this have the money to pay for this out of pocket. So this is not a good idea. It probably does nothing. It's probably not any type of actual radiation that would, have any effect. But he's saying that this also treats sarcoma, leprosy, tuberculosis, and typhoid, which I'm very confused because these are all very, very different diseases. If he's targeting cancer, I'm confused as to how this is going to target something like tuberculosis or leprosy. And then he has his disclaimer here that the beam ray is not FDA approved and we cannot and do not make any medical claims regarding the beam ray. So the disclaimer, not making any medical claims about the beam ray, but as we saw up here, clearly making medical claims about the beam ray. I would say, I don't know if any of you in the audience would agree with this, but I would say that the claim of curing cancer is also a medical claim. I would say that. Yeah, I'm not sure how these people sleep at night. I do not know, because they are taking money from people and not doing anything for them and essentially letting these people die. Because if you have a more aggressive cancer and you're telling people to stop undergoing chemo and stop undergoing legitimate therapies, these people could die and you are the cause of it. And I don't think these people either don't understand what they're doing or they don't care. And that's really, really disturbing to me. Yeah, and Purple makes a really, really good point that why would anyone go for a treatment that makes no medical claims? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. So this was a thing that that came up. Um, but the next person, I've put a lot more investigation into, because I think a lot of these cancer cure Facebook pages, number one, they're preying on very vulnerable people, and also a lot of them are targeting people with money to spend on these weird treatments, and also just people who don't know any better. And also, they target very religious communities, which is not super surprising. Hi, Mark. What is up? How are you? So I'm going to pull up this next person, and I'll get into a little bit more of a lecture here as well as we talk about this public figure that I found on Facebook. And you'll see right away why I have some problems with her page. But her page right away talks about helping families to fight cancer by feeling better and teaching them how to use natural solutions. This is somebody by the name of Season Johnson. She has 16,000 followers on Facebook. And right away, right off the bat, her most recent post is about the Bible. Not surprising. But she goes back to this kind of reasoning a lot. And I'm not going to spend today talking about that aspect because it's not my area of expertise. I don't really talk about, religion a whole lot on my channel. But we're going to talk about her cancer cures and her ideas. So I looked at her media. She has a lot of posts, just, kind of things about her family and stuff. But obviously, this was probably the most interesting thing that I ran into initially, is that she's a doTERRA rep. Not really surprising. So she is, number one, claiming to help people who are going through a very vulnerable time in their lives, people who have family members with cancer, and they're reasonably very concerned and very scared about what's going to happen to their family. And she's taking this opportunity to sell essential oils and other doTERRA products that are not approved by the FDA, not helpful for any medical issue. It is an MLM, Purple. It is. She is an MLM rep, and I'm sure these people are ready to buy her products because they're scared and they don't know what else to do. And she promises them an answer. And I know, so her story is a little bit depressing as well. She had a family member with cancer who thankfully got better. And I do not wish anything negative to happen for any of these people. I want all of these people to have successful cancer treatment. And I'm glad that her family member got better. But that being said, she is associating the fact that her family member got better with the fact that they used doTERRA products, and that they happen to do some of these internet cancer therapies. And there's one that a lot of these people, they will talk about this weird. I want to show you this one picture that I found. And this wasn't from her page. I don't remember which page this particular one was from. But people will undergo these weird detoxes, and they're making their own cancer therapies at home in their kitchen. Like, they're doing this kitchen alchemy. And you get things like this. So people are taking these pictures on their counter for these cancer treatment cocktails. And you have this tonic made from boiled water, lemon, turmeric, and ginger. And then you drink a glass of it 3 times a day, mixing in it 1 teaspoon of honey, optional, 1 teaspoon of bicarb soda, very important. So you have to include bicarb, 1 teaspoon of olive oil, and /apple cider vinegar, optional, /half teaspoon black pepper, 1 teaspoon cannabis oil, and a side of about 6 rice grain amounts of black cannabis oil. So you got 2 types of cannabis oil. And they're saying that this works miracles for chemo patients. And they also say that Essiac and dandelion tea is also awesome. And don't forget heaps of water, some fasting, avoiding meat, and that kind of thing. So he's made this cocktail, and he has it in a syringe, which scares me a little bit. I hope he's not going to inject it with that syringe. I mean, he's saying to drink it, which is always interesting to me when I see people who mix their bicarb with their apple cider vinegar, because I'm not sure what they're trying to do. I know a lot of these people will talk about making the body more alkaline because they believe that acids, cause the body to be out of balance. And drinking bicarb would make your body more alkaline, in that once you alter pH significantly in the stomach, you can get compensation from other areas in the body, assuming that you're able to compensate. If you're not able to compensate, this could result in severe pH issues and could cause you to be hospitalized. But using the bicarb along with apple cider vinegar does not make sense, because you are now mixing a base with an acid. So you're going to have some neutralization. I'm not sure what they expect to get out of that, but they seem to think that apple cider vinegar is a cure for almost anything, and it really isn't. But something like this, you have these things that they say are going to make you feel better, and sure, ginger does have some properties for reducing nausea, which is fine. Like, you're probably going to feel less nauseous with the ginger. Okay, fine. But when you add cannabis, you're also probably going to have reduced pain or reduced caring about your pain. You're going to probably get some relief. And that's great. Like, if you need something to feel better while you are undergoing chemo or undergoing radiation, and you want some pain relief or some nausea relief, this would probably help. However, if you use this as a treatment by itself and you decide to stop using your recommended treatment for whatever cancer you have, that's where it gets really, really dangerous. So calling it a cancer treatment is a problem. This is an absolute problem. They should be honest about what they're trying to get out of this. And if they were to say that this was a nausea therapy, you know what? I might not be as hard on them for it. I would still say that they should talk to a healthcare professional about it and see if it is appropriate for their situation. But if they were honest about it, I might not be as angry as I am about them saying that this is a cancer treatment. And yeah, SR, this is a very important point, that it needs to be processed correctly. All of this should be regulated. You should not be, just mixing random things together and then saying it's a cancer cure, especially if you're going to be using cannabis and other substances. So there's that. But back to our friend, the doTERRA rep, because she advertises similar things of the cancer cocktails, the detox cocktails. But I did some investigation into her page, because she has a whole separate website for herself as well. And she will do this thing where you go to her website for whatever she's advertising, and she'll make you type in your email address in order for you to get the article, which is really frustrating. But I did end up doing that, and I did get some articles, or at least one article from her. But some of the things that she says that are scary. So she's taking questions like, what are some things I can do to help safely detox my child from chemo without interfering with the effectiveness? And this is incredibly dishonest because we do know chemotherapy is toxic, and there's no way around that because we're essentially taking a risk that we are trying to kill cancer cells before we kill you. And sometimes we're not effective there. But cancer is so, especially for aggressive cancers that are going to require this chemo, it's a risk that is necessary to take because without it, people die. So we don't want to remove the toxicity of chemo. That is literally the mechanism of action, is cytotoxicity, which is unfortunate that we need to use that kind of method. But this is what we know works, and hopefully in the future we might find something else that is a little bit more gentle. But until we get there, this is what we have. But she is saying that it's important to actively detox during treatment to help flush the residual toxins and dead tumor waste out of the body. So here are my first 5 suggestions. Drink 6 to 8 ounces of bone broth each day, and twice per day, the day before chemo and the day of chemo and the day after chemo. I have no clue by what mechanism this would do anything, except maybe taste decent. I have zero idea. She says, eat more of the foods that support the body's ability to detox: berries, nuts, Brussels sprouts, beets, chia seeds, and grapefruit. Do not use grapefruit. This is such a bad idea. We know grapefruit has some effects on cytochromes, and if you're taking medications that are metabolized via cytochromes in the liver, you can have detrimental effects on your medications working. So especially certain chemotherapy drugs utilize uh, liver metabolism to work or to be eliminated. So you could actually either prolong your chemo meds or reduce their effectiveness by using grapefruit. So just don't. If you're taking medications, just don't use grapefruit. That's a bad idea. Everything else on this list is probably fine. Berries, nuts, Brussels sprouts, beets, chia seeds, sure, eat them. It's probably fine. Unplug Wi-Fi while sleeping. She is a firm believer that Wi-Fi causes cancer. We don't have evidence of this at all. So not a concern, but she seems to be convinced that Wi-Fi causes cancer. Is detoxing even a real thing? Well, in certain toxicology settings, you have ways to remove toxins such as like gastric lavage would technically detox. We don't use activated charcoal much anymore. Certain things that will bind the agent causing toxicity could be viewed as a detox, but really these more Facebook meanings of detox are not actually legitimate. They're not talking about detox in the same way that a medical professional would be talking about detoxing. So yeah, anytime someone says detox in this kind of setting, I'm immediately skeptical because I want to know what they mean and for what specific toxin are they trying to remove, because that's very, very important. Yeah, so many caveats. Yeah, basically if you're not a doctor or some medical professional that is utilizing emergency medicine or toxicology, I probably not going to believe your detox. Yeah, we haven't carried it because activated charcoal has not really been shown to be effective. It used to be used a lot more. It's not now. It's just not shown to be effective. And this is why we're always updating our standards of care, because we learn things over time. And it's important that we update. And a lot of the stuff that these people are saying, like they might use some of these older guidelines, and even that's a step up from what she's saying here. She says make sure to drink half of their body weight in ounces of filtered or distilled water each day, and rotate daily between castor oil packs over the liver and detox baths every day. I have no clue what castor oil is supposed to do, and especially if you're holding castor oil packs over the liver, that's not going to do anything at all. It's not. Like holding a substance like I think that's in reference to muscle testing and how if you hold on to something and then you test their muscles, supposedly they get weaker if it's something bad for you, and you get stronger if it's good for you. And that's not evidence based. So I think that's what she's meaning by that. Um, she has posts like 6 ways to create an environment cancer cannot live in. She says practice intermittent fasting daily, exercise 5 days a week, unplug your Wi-Fi and turn off your phone every night. Again, going to the back to the Wi-Fi thing. Eat more fat from organic sources, practice forgiveness daily, and have more sex with your spouse, which a lot of these things are not terrible, but they're not going to treat your cancer. So, and cancer, I want to talk a little bit about the mechanisms of cancer and how we get that disease, because she especially and a lot of other people that she cites say that cancer is an issue with the environment and not with the cells itself. And I heavily disagree with her. Um, she cites this doctor as well, who I'm going to do a whole separate episode on her, because she says cancer is not an invading organism. Cancer is not an alien. Cancer is tissue that has become energetically weak from an unwelcoming environment. And I'm very confused about how this person can have an MD and believe this stuff, because I'm going to mention that this does not work. So I filled out the form to get her 20 tips to eradicate cancer. And we're going to look at that because that's some fun stuff. So I sent her, I gave her my data, which is not something I wanted to do, but I have this article now and we can laugh at it. So we have 20 tips to fight cancer. And she has, of course, like her nice little cover page. But right away, the first thing says, remember, cancer is not the problem. It is simply the symptom of an underlying issue and imbalance in a person's body. This truth will equip you in understanding the underlying cause, which then leads to taking the correct steps towards healing a sick body. And I clicked on the read this article to help. And I'm going to, next week, we are going to address that specific article. And I'm going to have Jenna Mew on with me to talk about it, because it's an article from a chiropractor that talks about why God created cancer. And I saw that and I wanted to address that in a lot more detail. So that's coming soon. But cancer is the problem. And this is very dishonest reasoning and people saying that we're trying to treat the underlying cause. Is they're saying that cancer is essentially a result of a malfunctioning immune system, and that it's an indicator that you are exposing yourself to a bad environment on a daily basis. So they're going to use that to justify their nutrition therapies, their detox therapies, and they're turning off the Wi-Fi. They're saying that that's the problem and that cancer isn't the actual problem, that this is just a symptom of that. So we're going to look at cancer mechanisms. So we're going to start at the DNA level first. And I have this handy dandy little diagram. So cancer is essentially cells that have the ability to replicate on their own and replicate out of control. And you get this through DNA mutation. And it's going to be luck of the draw, because you can mutate any DNA in the body at all. And so let's say you have ultraviolet radiation that comes in and it's going to mutate some gene. There's a chance that the gene that is mutated is not going to cause cancer. It might just be some DNA that's not even coding for anything. There's a lot of DNA that does nothing at all in the body. So if that kind of gene gets mutated, no problem, no issue. But other genes that get mutated, if those don't function, we get problems. And that's where cancer comes in. So if you have genes that cause cells to grow and those get mutated, you could have problems with unregulated cell growth. If you have DNA that gets mutated that would regulate the cell cycle, things that would cause, you know, immune cells to not recognize cancer cells, that could be another problem. So each of these, if you are unlucky enough to have one of these genes mutated, that is where cancer is going to grow. And being alive long enough, most people, a high percentage of people, are going to get one of those genes to mutate. But usually one of those genes isn't going to be enough necessarily to cause a malignancy. You're going to need a combination of these mutations all at the same time, generally, to get an aggressive cancer. So the first kind of step is when you get a mutation in the DNA, you have mechanisms within the cell itself to try to fix the problem. So if you have a base pair that is changed in some way, the DNA is going to be different, and you have multiple mechanisms here showing mismatch repair, base excision repair, nucleotide excision repair, and double-stranded DNA break repair. These are all just fancy words for different mechanisms that can be used to correct the damage. So if one of these pathways, let's take mismatch repair. So let's say I needed a G and that gets turned into a C, that could cause the DNA to code differently. You could have a different protein that is then going to cause extra growth or inhibition of something that would prevent growth. And so we can get rid of this base pair. We can simply just use some enzymes to correct it. Put the correct base when I needed the G. I can take out the C, put the G in, no problem. We can go on with our day. And these other mechanisms can get kind of messy, but they also play a role in this. So if we have DNA damage and we can repair the DNA damage, not a problem. But let's say we mutated, the gene that was mutated was one of these repair mechanisms. So now, if we get another mutation and we need to correct it, we can't. So that's problem number one. If we cannot correct this mutation, it goes on. It's going to be replicated with the rest of DNA. When the cells undergo mitosis, that's going to be copied along with it, and more of these cells are going to have that specific mutation. So that's problem number one. Any questions so far about that? Yeah, I'm dosing myself with whiskey each day to prevent cancer. I know this is sarcasm, and yeah, good luck with that. Can you mix stuff with the whiskey? Probably. That'd probably be smart. I do not support whiskey to treat cancer, but you know, I can't stop you from doing what you're going to do anyway. So with the DNA repair, we have a faulty DNA repair mechanism. Let's look at the two types of genes that can lead to our next problem. So we're going to talk about oncogenes and tumor suppressor genes, and I have another diagram that I'm going to share. Okay. So we've mutated a DNA repair gene, and we have these other types of genes that are tumor suppressor genes and proto-oncogenes, which if you mutate a proto-oncogene, it's going to become an oncogene. And normally, you have cells that can grow, but they're going to be regulated as they grow. So the normal amount of proto-oncogenes is going to allow cells to grow and replicate, but not out of control. However, if you mutate this, you're going to get an oncogene, which is going to have increased function, so gain of function. If you have genes that are allowed to grow the cell and you have too many of these enzymes being replicated to cause growth, you're going to get excessive growth. So this is pretty simple for the oncogene. But then usually, if you have a mutated oncogene, you would hope that you have this tumor suppressor gene that's going to be helpful. And the job of the tumor suppressor gene is to prevent oncogenes from being out of control. It's going to say, we're growing too fast, we need to stop. So this is an inhibitor. So if you have a normal tumor suppressor gene, if your oncogene gets out of control, then your tumor suppressor gene will say, hey, stop, we cannot grow this much, this is bad. And then you go from there, no problem. So now, if we have a loss of function of this tumor suppressor gene, we've lost our inhibitor. So now we have this oncogene that is out of control growing. It's growing too much. You're having all of this cell division that should not be happening. And then you don't have a way to tell it to stop. This is where we get problems. So if we had only one of these genes mutated, it might not be as much of an issue. But when we have both of these mutated, this is how we get the problem. So I hope that that kind of made sense as to how cancer happens. But that's important going into this article, these people saying that it's the environment that's the problem and cancer is just a symptom. No, the actual mechanism of this DNA damage and the failure of DNA repair and the failure to regulate cell growth is a problem. And then you can have other genes here that also get mutated that would cause further problems, genes that would cause end up leading to angiogenesis or the ability of blood vessels to grow. Once you get those genes involved too, you have more problems. If you get genes that support metastasis, more problems there. But this is kind of the bread and butter issue of how we get this. So yes, your environment does play a factor. If you're exposed to mutagens, you're more likely to have these pathways happen. But oftentimes these mutagens we can't really avoid, such as sunlight. You can put on sunscreen, that's a great idea, but we're still at risk from things just in our everyday lives. So let's get back to the article, the 20 tips. So we read that. The next one, she is saying to eat more fat because fat can starve cancer cells and will also reduce inflammation and increase your energy and libido. So there's some legitimacy to this specific comment in that I did find some studies that suggested some efficacy of a ketogenic or low carb diet for certain cancers. However, I did find a meta-analysis that seemed to suggest that there still isn't enough evidence for it. So there's potentially some legitimacy to ketogenic diets and reducing tumor size, but I'm not sure about that. So I'm not going to make any big claims about that, but it's possible. It's possible that she's right here. But her reasoning is not. So the treatment potentially, but it was important to note that in everything that I saw about the ketogenic diet for tumors, the important thing was that you do not stop your cancer therapy. You continue undergoing chemo or your radiation or your surgery, and then you add the ketogenic diet on top of it as a secondary measure. So it should not be a primary thing. And also, the goal isn't to reduce inflammation or increase energy and libido. I mean, those are helpful, but you're not going to get that from a ketogenic diet. It's not going to necessarily help in that way. So her reasoning's wrong. Technique, possibly okay. The next one is to avoid GMO foods. And we talked about this. There's no reason why you would need to avoid GMO. There's no evidence behind that. And there's no advantage to purchasing organic. So we won't spend a whole lot of time on that one. Reduce stress and support the adrenals. The adrenal glands handle the stress response in the body, but also contribute to the integrity of the immune system. So when the adrenals are burdened, the immune system becomes compromised. So, yeah, I talked about this in my adrenal gland video. Adrenal fatigue isn't a thing. So this really isn't a problem, and I did not click on this article, but if you're interested, I mean, you can, but this is not a thing. Step 5, remove processed dairy from the diet and replace it with raw dairy such as raw cheese, raw kefir, and cultured yogurt. This is a problem. This is a serious, serious problem. So we're going to share from the CDC about raw milk. So pasteurized milk is okay for people with cancer, but raw milk has not been pasteurized, so it is very likely to contain harmful bacteria, of course. And with somebody who has cancer, they are immunocompromised. So it's very dangerous to expose them to extra risk of infection. These are definitely people that should not be eating raw dairy products at all. Do not do this. Some bacteria that we can get from raw milk, as stated here, you're looking at risk of brucella, which is something that we really associate with being around cows. We don't see a lot of brucella except in people who work on farms. And part of that reason is because we have pasteurized dairy products. So easiest way probably to reduce your risk of brucella is don't be around cows and don't drink raw dairy. Campylobacter, cryptosporidium, which people with cancer are already at high risk for cryptosporidium. This is a parasite that will cause watery diarrhea, which would cause electrolyte imbalance, which can be very dangerous, especially for people who are already in health compromised states. You don't want to be messing with someone's electrolytes like that. So you can get some fatal effects from cryptosporidium with immunocompromised patients. They're already at risk. This is a risk factor also found in raw dairy. E. coli can be fatal for these people. Listeria. Listeria is not dangerous for most people. The most common times you'd see listeria are in babies, and that's even becoming less common, or in elderly people with compromised immune systems. And listeria is it can be a source of GI disease, but also it's very dangerous in terms of meningitis. Listeria is a known pathogen that can cause meningitis in immunocompromised people. So definitely not something to mess with. And you can increase your risk here with raw dairy and salmonella. All of these can be fatal in someone with cancer. And even the CDC says here, who is at greatest risk from getting sick from drinking raw milk? People with weakened immune systems, such as people with cancer. There you go. There you go. So do not listen to her on this. She has no clue what she is talking about. And also, she's a doTERRA rep and has no medical experience at all. She has no qualifications that would indicate she is somebody to listen to. I don't understand why people think they understand medical issues and then go to Facebook and get 16,000 people buying your products and thinking that you are a responsible and reasonable source of information. Like, they are asking her questions about this, and she's showing up in the comments just giving casual answers like, "Oh yeah, I know how to do this. Yeah, just drink raw dairy." And then someone's going to get listeria meningitis and die. This is irresponsible. And she should not be doing this. I'm surprised. Well, okay, I'm not surprised that her account's still up, but I think she should be looked into for making these claims because she could very well have killed somebody already. Yeah, Purple. I'm believing the CDC over the internet. Yeah. Why would I do that? Okay, the next one. Next one, she says to remove all sugar from the diet. Glucose is the primary fuel for cancer. Therefore, it is important to eliminate excess glucose. So again, we talked a little bit about the ketogenic diet potentially being helpful for some tumor types. But glucose is not only the primary fuel for cancer, it is the primary fuel for you and all the rest of your cells. So this is a problem in telling people that glucose is a culprit, when especially you do want to make sure that you eat and that you have nutrition. And something else that is important to note: when you are low on glucose, when you eliminate your glycogen stores and don't have enough blood glucose for your brain to function, for your heart to function, you're going to make your own glucose. So, sure, there might be some benefit to reducing glucose, but you still need it to function, and your body is still going to make glucose anyway. Drink a green juice 4 to 6 days a week, and I have no clue what that's going to do at all. Zero clue. But I guess that's something that's really funny too, is that she's saying to remove all sugar from the diet, but green juice is going to be very high in sugar. Plant juices are naturally very high in glucose and fructose, and also dairy products. Dairy products are high in lactose. So of course you're getting sugars, and so she's already contradicting her own advice with avoiding sugars. The next one is to drink clean filtered water to help hydrate the body, flush toxins, and improve ingestion. Unfiltered water is full of toxic chemicals, medications, and heavy metals. I do agree you should use a water filter. Yeah, I mean, water's fine. Don't overhydrate. Don't underhydrate. Do what's right for you. There you go. Not too many problems with this. Drink at least 1 cup of meat stock bone broth daily. Bone broth is an incredible source of amino acids. It helps lower inflammation and support the immune system. Okay, so this is funny because I love when, and I'm sure a lot of you love this too, when they simultaneously, in the same sentence, that you should decrease inflammation and then also boost the immune system, because the inflammation is a function of the immune system. So if you're going to have a healthy immune system, you're going to have an appropriate amount of inflammation, and that's, it's beneficial. You don't want it to be too much, because then you run into autoimmunity, and that's a problem. So you don't want to overstimulate the immune system, but you don't want to suppress it, and especially in somebody who has cancer and who is already immunosuppressed. You don't want to further suppress their immune system. So maybe an anti-inflammatory is not going to be the right answer for these people unless it is demonstrated that they do have an autoimmune problem. And I also don't know how bone broth does that. I would love a citation, and I would like a mechanism of action for how this happens, but they're probably not going to provide it for me. Next one is eat 1 serving of fermented foods a day, such as raw kefir. Do not do the raw kefir. We already talked about that. Homemade sauerkraut or homemade pickles. The microflora that lives in fermented foods creates a protective lining in the gut that inhibits pathogens, growth of candida, and other disruptive gut bugs. Yeah, I mean, this is fine. This one's fine. It's not a cancer cure, but this one's not a problem. Add grass-fed gelatin to your diet. Gelatin lowers homocysteine levels, which is a significant risk factor for disease. It also heals the gut, protects the joints, helps with sleep, and contributes to beautiful, healthy skin. So homocysteine, yes, is something that we monitor in certain people who have conditions where they cannot eliminate homocysteine on their own. But if you don't have one of those enzyme defects, we're not really worried about this. We do not just test everybody for homocysteine levels. That's a little bit ridiculous. And so I would need a citation that this does anything at all for anybody. But we really don't care. I mean, she can sound all smart saying that, oh, we're watching your homocysteine, and most of the general public is not going to know what homocysteine is. And they're going to say, yeah, sure, that sounds like something scary that I want to reduce in my body. But, unless you have some issue that predisposes you to high levels of homocysteine, probably don't care about this one. Does that work with Jello shots made with whiskey? I mean, you can try. I don't think it's going to help your cancer, but, the internet says it's true, so it must be true, right? Take 1 serving of a therapeutic probiotic daily. This is essential for a strong immune system to be able to detect and fight the cancer cells. Yeah, I mean, so this goes along with the fermented foods. This is actually okay, especially if you are immunosuppressed. This might be beneficial. Sleep. Okay, I can get behind her on this one. Sleep is very important. Go into detox mode. That's some interesting phrasing. But yeah, sleep is good. Reduce EMF exposure from cell phones, computers, and all mobile devices by placing cell phones on airplane mode. Turn Wi-Fi off and unplug everything in the bedroom when not using. Also, get added protection on your cell phone and or computers with Defender Shield. I didn't even look into this, but maybe I need to do a future episode about people who think that Wi-Fi causes cancer. I'm going to look at this really quick. Oh, that link is not currently active. So that got taken down. Cool. This is just ridiculous. And I'm not like an engineer. I don't know much about how Wi-Fi works and all that. But maybe I'll do an episode in the future talking about cancer and EMF. But there's no evidence so far that says that there's any association. So you really don't need to do this. I mean, it might be good for, if you're, I don't think, like, most people have like unlimited Wi-Fi anyway, so I don't think it would do anything for your Wi-Fi bill. But I don't know, if you find some benefit to turning off your Wi-Fi every night, fine, but it's not going to do anything for your health. Replace toxic cookware and bakeware. There are many chemicals that leach into food when using toxic cookware. In fact, PFOA is a toxic gas released from nonstick cookware that is directly linked to cancer. Citation, please. I don't think there's any evidence to suggest this, so don't worry about it. Use whatever cookware you want. Use essential oils. Here we go. doTERRA. doTERRA is, of course, wanting some money out of this. Use essential oils to provide the body with raw materials needed to fully heal. They are such an important and effective part of treating the body holistically and so easy to implement. What raw materials are in essential oils that you aren't going to be able to get from anywhere else? I'm very confused. But of course, she has to shill her products. Practice self-care daily. One of my favorite habits for healing is by gratitude journaling. And I mean, okay, like if you want to participate in mental health activities, if journaling is helpful for you, then by all means, I'm not going to tell people to stop doing this. It's not a replacement for actual medical therapy, but it is good for everybody to participate in self-care. I'm going to support this, not as a cancer cure, but just something that everybody should be doing anyway. Whatever that looks like for you, you don't have to journal. You can do whatever activities, bring you joy. Schedule a date night with your partner or an outing, doing something you enjoy with a friend. Okay, here we go again, mental health. And yeah, no problem there, but not a cancer cure. This one, I looked at this article, and it's a long one. Use ozone therapy to improve the immune system and ability to detox. Ozone has the ability to be toxic to damaged and dying cells, and yet it can also support the integrity of healthy cells. Disease cannot live in an ozonated environment. I'm very confused about the mechanism of this. It seems very contradictory in that it would simultaneously do one thing to cells and another thing to cells, when cancer cells are your cells. They're just mutated. and have lost some regulation. So I want a citation on this, and I'll show you guys the article briefly because oh man, we can take a few minutes to talk about this website that this links to. I won't go into the article because it's a long article, and I think we could do a separate episode on it. Yeah, SR, I have no clue how the date's gonna help you with your cancer, but apparently it does. Yeah, so let's go to this website. And this isn't Facebook. This one doesn't come from Facebook, but it's equally ridiculous. Actually, more so ridiculous even than a lot of the things we already talked about. So I followed the link to the article from The Truth About Cancer, this website. This is a scary website, and I could probably also do a whole episode about just this website. But there's an article about ozone therapy, a powerful cancer treatment and healing protocol. And without reading the whole article, it's very long. It's a very long article. But my point was the person who wrote this article, and this isn't a study, this is just, an article on the internet on some quiet cancer website. And it was written by Jane Goldberg, PhD, who, notice her qualifications. So she's a PhD in being a psychoanalyst. She's a psychoanalyst who works with cancer patients. She is not qualified to talk about medical therapy. She's not a doctor. She's not a PhD in cancer biology. She's a psychoanalyst and thinks that she has the qualifications necessary to tell people about cancer treatments. This is incredibly dangerous, and she's not a good person to choose for this. Let's kind of just browse this website a little bit and see what else they say about cancers. We had the ozone therapy. Why is this? Oh, here we go. Okay. Cancer treatments. This is what I want. And there's a sad story. Alternative. So they are actually saying, read this sentence. I don't know if you can see me highlighting, but it says, click the articles below to learn about the natural alternatives to chemotherapy, the cancer treatments that Big Pharma doesn't want you to know about, and how the secret to beating cancer may be as simple as changing your diet. They are claiming to be an alternative, and in doing so, that is telling people to stop doing their cancer therapy. I should see if they have a disclaimer, because that's, I don't know, that looks like a medical claim to me. That looks like a claim. Do they have a disclaimer? It might have a disclaimer on at the bottom or on a different page. There's their disclaimer. There's a disclaimer. This is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or prescribe for any medical or psychological condition, nor to prevent, treat, or mitigate or cure such conditions. And that you should talk to your doctor. So their disclaimer way at the bottom in this microscopic font, but up here, they're allowed to get away with alternatives to chemo. And you get 7 benefits of vitamin C, talking about modern medical research. They're telling people to do research. This is so scary. Proton beam therapy. I think that's the beam therapy that we saw earlier, the beam ray. I think that's the beam ray. Why turmeric is the gold standard for lung cancer? Is corporate bribery determining your cancer treatment? Wow, so they are sowing distrust and telling people to stop doing chemo. So they are saying the ways that you could start off before doing chemo is detox. How do they suggest detox is the question. Conventional cancer treatments like chemotherapy flood the body with additional toxins that can keep it from healing. The cells of our body automatically cleanse and detoxify by eliminating accumulated waste products. True. If the body is unable to eliminate toxins fast enough compared to the amount of toxic waste coming in, cells start malfunctioning and the disease process begins. Not wrong. This is not wrong. But that again assumes that you've taken such a high dose of these toxins, and they're not even specifying which ones. But if you have enough of it to cause a toxicity, number one, and to overwhelm the liver and overwhelm the kidney, sure, this is true, that you'd start getting disease processes from toxicity. But they're taking small facts that are true and they're going to twist them to say that you should get their detox products. So they're saying that, well, you don't know that you haven't accumulated all of these toxins and you need to get rid of them. And obviously, if you have cancer, you've been exposed to toxins. So do my detox. And that's not what we would do at all. If you were having a legitimate toxicity, their detoxes are not what we're going to go with. There are specific ways that you can help mitigate toxicities, and this is not it. But vulnerable people might believe that they know what they're saying because they already sound like they're citing studies. They are using easy enough terminology and using some true information to get people on their side, and they're going to tell them later on about the 4 signs you need to detox. They say a 2005 study found 287 industrial chemicals in the umbilical cords of newborns. Half of these chemicals are known to cause cancer. Okay, and what dosages and what types of cancer? This is very dishonest reasoning. This slow poisoning has an effect on the body's pH balance, and all of these poisons push the body into an acidic state, allowing cancer to thrive. Wow. So so they're not going to list those chemicals that they're proposing. So I don't know which ones they're talking about. And they're saying that all of them, every single one of them has an effect on pH balance. So if you are actually being put into acidosis, that's a problem. And we would know. We would know if you were acidotic because you'd be in the ICU. Acidosis is not something to mess with. Neither is alkalosis. You don't want your body to be alkaline or acidic. Although you want it to be slightly alkaline from baseline. Well, depending on the body, at least your bloodstream should be very, very slightly alkaline at 7.35 to 7.45. But this is really dangerous, and you're probably not in an acidic state. So just don't worry about that. You would know. If you were in an acidic state, we would know about it. So there's that. Aromatherapy. Yes, this one's a problem because you can use aromatherapy for nausea, anxiety relief, certain mental health reasons. Aromatherapy can be beneficial. The problem is they're saying that the aromatherapy targets cancer cells and is an actual, essentially chemotherapy. They're saying that this is a chemotherapy. And when we say chemo, there are a lot of medications that are chemotherapies that we don't necessarily wouldn't necessarily think of as chemotherapies. Oftentimes we think of cancer therapies as being chemo, because many of them are, but certain medications for rheumatoid arthritis and other autoimmune conditions utilize chemotherapy to be managed. So chemotherapy is not always associated with cancer, and it's kind of an umbrella term for a variety of medications. So you can't even just say all chemotherapy does X, because there's a wide varieties of types of chemotherapy. So using that language is dishonest in this sense, because they're against chemotherapy, but then essentially saying that these essential oils are chemotherapy. This mechanism of targeting cancer cells, they're saying it is a chemotherapy. So, exercise. I don't have a whole lot of problems with exercise. I'm going to skip over that one. Oh, wow. I did not, because I did not read this article before. We just found this during the stream. So, chiropractic care. Ensuring your spine is properly aligned is vitally important in keeping the entire body healthy. No. Well, in terms of if your spine is dislocated, that's a problem. But that's not what they mean. A properly aligned spine allows the meridians to facilitate optimal energy flow. No. Chiropractic care is crucial to maintaining proper spine alignment. Proper energy flow is essential to good health. The immune system interacts directly with the nervous system, and any obstruction within the signaling pathways between the nervous and the immune system can negatively impact your body's ability to heal. There's a lot here. There's a lot here to unpack. So let's address the argument by itself first. So it's crucial to maintain proper spine alignment because it's good for the body, and proper energy flow is good for health. Okay, cool. How does it do this, and why? What's the mechanism that would cause this to do what you're saying it does, and also demonstrate that this is needed? Because I have no evidence for meridians. I have no evidence to say that there is an optimal energy flow, so I don't see a reason to strive for that. I need a connection between energy flow and overall health. I need evidence for spinal alignment and immune system function, because that's not related. These are separate systems. Sure, you have some regulation of the immune system, like in the brain, potentially, like neurotransmitter release and things, but this is something I would also need citations for. And that chiropractic would even be helpful for that. So there's a lot of claims here and no justification. Emotional clearing. Wow, this is a claim. Okay. The profound effect that emotions have on health and lifespan can be evidenced by a groundbreaking series of 10-year-long studies published in the British Journal of Psychology and Psychotherapy in 1988. So this is a very old study. Number one, I think there is some evidence for, of course, like there's evidence for mental health and lifespan. This, though, with emotional stress more predictive of death from cancer or cardiovascular disease than from smoking, I would need some citations. And I'm also going to say that, like, this is not a bad thing to do. It's not bad to have, regulated emotions, but it's not an alternative to chemo. And in reading a lot of these, it's easy to get caught up in, well, yeah, they have some ideas here that aren't a problem, that are good things to do. But go back up to the claim that they made initially. The claim that these are justifications for their claim that they can be an alternative to chemo and radiation. So that's the problem. The emotional regulation is not a problem in itself, but it is a problem when you are substituting medical care for this. Pancreatic enzymes. Okay. I would need to look more into this one specifically, because I do want to make sure I'm giving correct information. But I don't think taking pancreatic enzymes is going to I mean, for sure, it's not going to treat your cancer. It's not. But I do. If I were to talk more about this, I would want probably some more time. Immunotherapy. And I think the way that they mean immunotherapy is very different from the way I would mean immunotherapy, because immunotherapy, sure, yeah, there is some evidence, things like CAR T could probably be effective. That's utilizing essentially genetically modified T cells to combat cancer. That's on the table. That's immunotherapy. Um, so I don't have a problem with evidence-based immunotherapy, but they are not meaning that in this article. Uh, Immunotherapy marks an entirely different way of treating cancer by targeting the immune system, not the tumor itself. So they're citing actual evidence-based immunotherapy and saying, yeah, oncologists say that this works, and they're saying that this is the next step in cancer therapy. And I agree. I agree with that statement. But they take that and they're equivocating their immunotherapy of their detoxes and their natural remedies as boosting the immune system, that is equivalent to this immunotherapy that has been shown to work. So this is dangerous. Ketosis, we talked a little bit about that, so I won't go into that. Acupuncture and neutrino energy. Okay. I would need some evidence that shows that acupuncture can eliminate cancer stem cells. And exposing the patient to neutrino energy from the sun. I would need some evidence there. I would also be concerned if this is some kind of radiation. I would need some, evidence that it's not also contributing to cancer. I'd like to see that as well. I have no clue. Oh, wait, hold on. Oh, no, I don't know if I've read about this. Gerson therapy. An organic plant-based diet, raw juices, coffee, enemas, natural supplements. Wow, okay. Yeah, we're going to get into this in a separate video with the coffee enemas. Wow, I need to look into that one. Okay. Fermented ginseng. I could probably just, go down the rest of this list and just say citation needed. Next is salvestrol. I don't know much about this one. Again, citation needed. Vitamin C, citation needed. We actually don't have evidence that vitamin C is helpful. Turmeric, citation needed. Anti-neoplastin therapy. I need to look into this one too. We're looking at a lot of potential future content, and I love this. I love this. We're gonna jump back into all that later. Midichlorian. They meant midichlorians. Yeah, definitely. Oh man, yeah. No, we'll get into some of these later. We talked about ozone therapy a little bit. That'll be another one. Wow, I have so many options. Hyperthermia. Okay. Wow. Okay. There's a lot here. We're gonna save those. Okay. Let's debrief. A little bit. What are some things that we talked about in terms of cancer therapies? Number one, if you're going to get advice for treating cancer, you should not be going to Facebook. Facebook is not the place that's going to give you good advice. You need to go to a physician. That is going to be the best option. Do not be going to people who are doTERRA reps. doTERRA is not going to help you. Don't use Emu Oil. It's not going to help you. Don't be drinking raw milk if you have cancer, if you're immunosuppressed. Number one is delete Facebook. Yes. Delete Facebook. It's terrible. Do not go into these. Actually, well, if you really want a fun time, you can go hang out in some of those cancer therapy groups. I'm tempted to sneak my way into some of the private groups and then see what they say. And maybe we'll have some more content in the future with all of that. Yeah, exactly. TikTok is the best place for cancer treatments. No, do not go to TikTok. Do not go to Instagram. Do not go to Twitter. Do not go to any of these places for medical advice. Stay off of those. Do not, what else do we talk about? Oh, don't make your own cancer cocktail at home. Don't be just buying cannabis oil and putting it in your ginger juice and drinking it. This is a bad idea. I mean, this is all very easy to debunk. I hope that, this cleared a lot of stuff up, but also it gave us a good laugh for some ridiculous things that they said. So I think that kind of wraps it up. In terms of announcements, we went over some announcements at the beginning of the show, but I will kind of give you some. You want a fun time? Go to those cancer pages. I'm gonna send you. I don't know if you were at the beginning of the video, Johnny, but that one guy saying that the Vatican is the pinnacle of darkness or whatever. I would love to just address some of that guy's posts. Yeah, SR. We need to do a stream on cannabis and healing properties. I actually really do want to have you on for that. Discord. Everyone, if you want to join the Discord, there are some updates to the Discord. I've made a patron chat where I'm putting the patron links for after the show, for the after show. You can go there. We have some fun kind of stupid things going on in the Discord, such as you can now choose a department. I know Secularity is the head of the complaints department, so you can also join the complaints department if that is your jam. You can also join the snacks department. They are recruiting. The lore department is also recruiting, so you can go in there and have a good time. Most of the shenanigans kind of take place in the Discord, so if you're just looking for some ridiculousness, you can go to the Discord. We also have a Facebook group, which is a bit less chaotic. That's more announcements go up there. So be sure to join the Facebook group. Also, what else we got? We have the Patreon after show. Obviously, after the show, about 10 or 15 minutes or so at the end, after we end, we will go over to, you can find the link on Patreon or in the Patreon Discord. And with that, we have some lovely patrons. I'd love to shout out Reggie, Kevin Downey, Uncle Beck, Haney Ball, Tons of Mice, Sadie, and Jody. Thank you for your support. It's great having you there. I hope to see you at the after show. We do some ridiculous things over there. What other announcements did I have? Oh, next week, we have trivia night on Friday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern time. So come hang out. We might do trivia. We might just play some games, but always a good time over there. Also, we have Medical Myths again next week. I'm going to be on with Jenna talking about that God and Cancer article that I kind of briefly talked about today. We're going to be diving more in detail on that. And also, I'm trying to plan a movie night in the Discord. So stay tuned for those announcements. It will probably be on a Sunday evening, kind of after all of the community shows are done. We'll go hang out in the Discord. And I think the next movie on the list is the Muppet movie. So we're going to plan a time to watch that. We might even have, there's discussion of a Muppet movie marathon. So you can go hang out there and we'll update you when that happens. But thank you everybody for sticking around. Thank you once again to the patrons. I will see you all in a few minutes. Stay curious, everybody. Don't go to Facebook for your cancer cures, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye, everyone.